Okay, good morning, everybody. Keith Engel for TGI Sports Talk. Thank God it's Friday, and thank God it's sports. Beautiful, brisk morning here in upstate New York. We're still the only live streaming sports webcast that I'm aware of, and hopefully that continues. We're doing very well. I want to thank all of you for the views. I mean, each and every week we've had thousands, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 or more views of our interview shows. Not so much the shows that I've done live Sunday mornings, but they don't get put in the same channels, but we hope to move those forward too. And we might make some changes, maybe to times and things like that. But I want to thank all of you. And if we can turn those views, so if you're viewing this now and you're going to watch our interview with Dale Scott today, I hope you'll come to the TGI Sports Talk page and like it. And we can turn those views into likes and followers. And it would really, help our cause here on Facebook and on YouTube when we start promoting a little bit more there. The videos are available on YouTube as well, if you did not know that. But for now, I prefer you view it here. I want to thank last week's guest, Roger Weiland. Roger was 2 weeks ago. Last week's guest was Mark Littell, former Major League Baseball pitcher, relief pitcher with the Kansas City Royals and St. Louis Cardinals. Mark was a great guest. We had a lot of fun talking about his books, On the Eighth Day God Made Baseball and Country Boy, and an upcoming book. And please check out his Nutty Buddy site. It's interesting. He's got some awesome videos up promoting the product, and it's a good product too if you're still into sports, if you're a young person, or if you're older like I am and still participating in physical contact sports. Chasing my cats around houses is the most contact I get physically these days, from a sports standpoint. Sorry. Lots happened recently, which we'll talk about probably. I think I may do a quick video later. There's some changes to the network and my affiliations, and we'll talk about that. I do want to thank Joe Altieri for his help in getting this show started. And Joe's kind of changing his opinion on Facebook, and I don't think we're quite on the same page there. But I hope to talk to Joe, and then we'll address what those affiliations will be. TGI Sports Talk, going nowhere. So if you're one of the Wake Up to the Vibe tribe, I hope you will join us here at the TGI Sports Talk tribe and continue to watch the show and get your friends to like and share and follow our page. Today's show will be a little bit longer. I had my guest today is Dale Scott, as I mentioned, retired Major League umpire, one of the best umpires for 32 years, I think. Dale umpired both in just the American League, and then when the leagues combined, he was umpiring all the games, both National League and American League. We're going to talk a little bit about what it takes to become a Major League umpire, his life getting up to that, his interaction with some managers and players, and some other interesting topics, which I think you'll love. The interview went a little long, I'll be honest with you, so I hope you'll stick it out. I'll be back for some comments afterwards. We had to record it earlier. Dale lives out in Portland, and 5 a.m. was going to be a little early for him, but we had a great interview. I'm going to play it for you now, as I mentioned, and then I'll be back to close the show afterwards. So I really hope you'll watch the interview. I will try to see the comments. I'm going to try very hard to see the comments, and I can make some live replies today if I can make it work. And we'll talk after. But right now, bear with me because this is the first time I've done this. We're going to play the interview with Dale Scott, former Major League umpire, and it's a lot of fun. Dale's a lot of fun, and I think you'll see that if you do watch the interview. So please stay with us. I'll see you afterwards to wrap up the show and talk about a few other things. All right. Well, we'd like to welcome our guest, Dale Scott, former Major League Baseball player. Good grief. You probably wish you were a former Major League Baseball
I was such a horrible player. That's why I
am. Former umpire, Dale Scott. You actually got to get our intro music today since we are recording this earlier in the week. We won't be like any of the major networks and try to say plausibly live or anything like that.
We're alive while we're doing it. How's that?
Yes, I'd like to stay that way for the hour anyway. I hope you do as well.
Think of the ratings. No.
We don't want to get them like that. I mean, TV's bad enough.
Exactly.
We'll keep it straight here. So I thank you for coming on TGI Sports Talk today, Dale.
I'm happy to be here. Glad to be here.
Good. I got thinking. I've had some players on. I've had some sports writers, mostly on the East Coast here from the New York Post and some other publications. And when I got thinking, I was like, I know that I had friended Dale Scott recently, and I know he had a really good baseball career as an umpire. And I thought, why not get an umpire's perspective of the game and things like that? So here you are.
Here I am. Yeah, a lot of people don't hear it from the umpire perspective a lot of times. So.
No, and it's funny. I don't know why, because I would think that, in fact, I think the only book I ever read, a sports book ever read by an umpire, was Ron Luciano's book. I can't remember the name of it now, but
well, he had a couple of them. I know one was The Umpire Strikes Back.
Yeah, that's one.
And I think he had two, maybe three. I know he had two.
Yeah, they were great reads, so I don't know why more umpires haven't done that. Before we jump in, is that something you ever thought of?
Well, actually, Doug Harvey, Ken Kaiser, Al Clark, Dave Phillips, Durwood Merrill, they all wrote books. I'm actually right now working with a writer trying to we're kind of looking for a publisher to take us on, and so we're in the very beginning stages of maybe writing something. Yes.
Good. That'd be interesting. So you were born in Oregon.
Yeah. Oregon. Yeah.
I had the same problem with Mark Littell the other day. I couldn't say Missouri right. I was saying Missouri.
Missouri.
He says, no, Missouri.
Yeah. Oregon, the easier way is Oryggun, if you spell it that way. Oregon.
I got to do Oregon. I mean, it doesn't seem that hard. And it's just, I don't know, it's my upstate New York upbringing. It's right. Comes out every now and again.
Well,
English and math were not my.
Right now, you could call it Oregon on fire, frankly.
So you were born there. As a younger man, who did you root for in Oregon? Who were your teams?
Well, growing up, I was born and raised in Eugene, Oregon, and I live in Portland now. But growing up, my mom's father, my grandfather, lived in Los Angeles, so I grew up a Dodger fan. And of course there was no Mariners, right. And the closest teams actually were Oakland or San Francisco. But I grew up a Dodger fan, and that's who I rooted for.
Oh, cool. It's funny because I was thinking about we're about the same age, and I'd watched a documentary here about a year ago about Bing Russell and his team, the Portland Mavericks. Were you of the age where you were aware of that?
Well, that era that you're talking about was like 74, 75, somewhere there. And I was in high school in Eugene, so I don't really remember it as it was going on. I mean, but I've certainly seen the documentary. It's really
hear about
interesting.
A year ago
and they kind of owned the town for a couple of days.
Russell and his team, the Portland Mavericks.
That was quite a bunch. I wish that would have been fun to umpire, I think.
It would have been. It's funny. I knew nothing of it. I stumbled upon it on YouTube or someplace one day. No, Netflix, I guess. And it was really an interesting documentary for sure. So, as you grow up, I know you started umpiring at a young age.
Yeah, that's what you do when you can't play.
Yeah.
I mean, growing up, I knew what I was going to be. I was going to be the first baseman with the Dodgers. It was a done deal. I just couldn't throw, hit, run, or field. So I well, apparently that's important. So I started umpiring when I was 15 because I was going into high school. At that time, it was a 3-year high school, so I was going to my sophomore year. And of course, there's only varsity or JV, and I was 2 or 3 levels below that. So, but I loved baseball. I always loved baseball. It was my favorite sport. And so I would, what do you do at 15 if you don't have the talent to play? And I'm certainly too young to coach. Not that I would be a very good coach anyway, but a friend of mine who was about a year older said the year before he had umpired, during the summer, and he said, you should try that. He goes, you make some bucks. It's kind of fun. I thought, that actually sounds kind of fun. It keeps me in the game. And frankly, I sitting on the bench all those times when I was playing, I watched the umpires a lot. So I thought, I'll give that a try. So I was 15 and I fell in love with it.
That's cool. So, and I know you started out as I don't know if you started out, but at a younger age, you were, as you mentioned earlier, top 40 radio disc jockey.
Yes, I got a job at KBDF Eugene when I was 16. Actually, it was the summer. I was almost 17. It was the summer before my senior year. That's another. I loved baseball. I also was very. At I don't know, 12, 13. I was listening to the radio. I wanted to be a disc jockey. I just thought that was radio was kind of a fascinating field and stuff. And so after my sophomore and junior years in high school, we had a school district FM station that all 4 high schools in the district had time during the day, Monday through Friday and this and that. So I was involved in that and I really liked it. So I just cold called KBDF, which was at that time the number one. This is 1976, the number one top 40 station, AM station in Eugene, this is where all the high school kids listen to or whatever. And it just ironically was right across the street from our high school was the studios. So I just took a tape in from what I had done on the high school station, a little sampling of my work, and went to KBDF and just cold called to just, I was hoping I'd get just something to get my foot in the door, and they hired me and I was on, my first shift was ironically, it was prime time. It was 3 to 6 in the morning, Sunday morning, July 4th, 1976. It was the bicentennial. And that's when I made my debut on KBDF. And again, that was something I really loved also. So the rest of high school and a couple of years of college, I was umpiring baseball. I also refereed football and basketball at the high school level, and I was working as a DJ. So it was funny because I would work a Friday afternoon game, the Spencer Butte Junior High or something, and that night I was the DJ for their dance. KBDF personality Dale Scott will be your DJ tonight. And so it was funny because I would show up that night and a couple of guys would look up and go, hey, that's the dude that struck me out today. So they started calling me the umpire with the golden voice, which was kind of funny. But
that must have been some interesting or awkward moments during some of those dances.
Yeah, it was different. They were screaming at you in the afternoon and then they were requesting Sean Cassidy at night. So it was really quite something.
God, Sean Cassidy, I can't be that old.
Well, I am.
So what takes you from that? And I got to believe probably at that time you're thinking, oh, man, this is awesome. I'm going to be a radio DJ.
Exactly. And I was working full time after I graduated high school. I was 2 years at Lane Community College there in Eugene. I was taking television broadcasting and production. And when I graduated with an Associate of Science, a 2-year degree in May of '79, I went full time at the radio station, 10 to 2 at night, and then they promoted me to 6 to 10 at night. And I loved it. I would umpire and I'd referee. Well, then a different friend had told me, so you should think about going to umpire school. You've got a lot of talent, and he had gone a few years earlier, and he didn't get a job out of it, but he loved the experience. And he said, Dale, I think you would really enjoy the experience, and also you'll come back and you'll shoot right up. You'll start be doing college and bigger games and all that stuff. So I thought that sounds interesting. So and the radio station say, they thought I was insane. And they, umpire school is about like 5 weeks long. So they gave me basically a leave of absence because they were convinced, and frankly, so was I, that I would come back after school. I wasn't get a job out of it. I knew there was a possibility of that happening, but that really wasn't high on my radar. And so I went to umpire school when I was 21. It actually started the day after Christmas, 1980, but it was the 1981 Bill Kinnaman Umpire School in San Bernardino. And I finished 5th. The top 5 went to the advanced school in Florida, and I was on my way.
Well, that sounds fun. So what was your first year that you started in the minor leagues?
1981. After umpire school, I went to the advanced school. I finished in the top 10 in the advanced school, and I was placed in. I had minor league spring training in Yuma, where the Padres used to be, for a couple of weeks, and then I was assigned to the Northwest League. So I got home in early April, and I didn't go. Northwest League didn't start till about June 19th or something. So and that was my first year in the Northwest League, and the first year in professional baseball was 1981.
Yeah, you must have thought you hit the big time. I'm sure the money was awesome.
It wasn't. I think we made seriously, that's 1981, but I think I want to say we made $600 a month.
Wow.
And what they would do is they break it down to 400 in expenses and 200 salaries. So the 400 we could write off on taxes because we're hotels and that kind of stuff. You're in the minor leagues not to make money. Yeah. You're in the minor leagues to try to get to the big leagues, basically. But I was 21 and I was loving life. I mean, the fact that I got a job out of umpire school, although like I said, I knew that was a possibility. That's a pretty big deal because there's very few that actually get jobs out of the school. You have to understand, I was at the San Bernardino school, but there was also 2 Florida schools. So there's a total of about approximately 200 and something students that year. The top 50 went to the advanced school, and then the top 10 out of the advanced school got guaranteed jobs. So that's narrowed it down, pretty good. I mean, the odds of getting a job out of there aren't high. Once you're in the system, then it's a whole new ballgame. Now it's a matter of going through the system. Unlike players, where a player could be really hot in A ball and they'll send him right to AAA, or a guy who's doing great in AA, boom, he's in the big leagues. An umpire has to work at every level. At least you don't have to work a whole year, but at every level you have to work. So I went from rookie ball to A ball to AA to AAA, and then once you get to AAA, that's when the big leaguers, supervisors are scouting you, and that's when you're hoping to get that next step. But to get just to AAA is a whole nother journey. There's only at that time. When I got hired in 1986 in the American League, there were 32 on the American League staff, and I think 36 on the National League staff. So not a lot of major league full-time umpires.
Yeah, what I was going to ask you, and I don't even know if you'll know the number because it's probably, I'm sure it's fluid. What's the percentage of umpires that get started in the minor leagues that actually make it to the major leagues?
Well, I don't know how official this stat is, but what they say is every year at the 2 umpire schools, about 1% will make it all the way to the big leagues, which is 1% it's maybe 1 to 2 guys out of every school year. Now that's an average. It's there's a lot of good umpires that got all the way to AAA and never got to the big leagues because of numbers. Once you're in the big leagues, you basically are there until you retire or die. Frankly, you don't. There's rarely does an umpire released or fired, and usually when it's happened for off the field incidents of whatever. Yeah. But it's not very often. So it's the numbers game kind of thing. To illustrate that, the year 1986 when I was hired by the American League, and at that time the American League and National League had separate staff, separate leagues. Right. Starting in 2000, we all work as major league umpires and work everybody. But back then, the American League had 2 openings that year, and myself and Tim Cheetah were the 2 that got the openings. There was not another opening. That was in 86. There was one. The next opening was like in 89, There was one or two other openings from 86 until 1999. I think there were 4 openings in the American League, and I got one of them. So that showed that the American League staff was very young. Also, there weren't a lot of guys obviously retiring, where the National League staff was a little bit older. They had more openings on that side. Plus, they had expansion in the 90s, which is immediately four new umpires. But anyway, it's a numbers game, and so you can get up to AAA. But if there's no place to go after a few years, usually you're let go. It's you're, like I said, you're in the minor leagues for one reason: is to get to the big leagues. And if you're not going to get there, usually which is actually a good thing, because I mean, good from the standpoint that if you don't have a shot at the big leagues, it's probably good to find out earlier rather than later, because now you're probably going to be in your, most guys, if they're in AAA, they're going to be in their early to mid 30s, maybe late 20s, but early 30s. It's time to move it, find something else to do instead of just stringing you along another 4 or 5 years and then letting you go, which, doesn't do anybody any good.
Yeah, but once you get there, I mean, so as far as job security, there's a Supreme Court and there's Major League Baseball umpires, or maybe it's the other way around. I'm not sure. It's pretty close.
That's pretty close. You're vetted so much before they hire you, working games up and down, and they have a pretty good sense of you both on and off the field. Not always, I went through the system really quickly. I was the exception, not the rule, for sure. But yeah, once you're up there, the job, we have a strong union. The umpires union, number one priority is job security. And I mean that from the standpoint that, throughout the years, Major League Baseball, if they had their way, would have had a much easier way to get rid of guys. And, we're going to make mistakes out there. Okay. We're going to miss pitches. You're going to miss plays. It's not necessarily that you miss things, because that's going to happen. Are there patterns? Are there consistencies of missing things? And a lot of times when umpires are, fans see just calls and right or wrong and whatever they may think. And of course we have replay now, and that's a whole different ball game. But a lot of what makes a good umpire compared to a great umpire is handling situations. Most of the guys in their whole body of work, their pitch, a ball strike, safe out, fair foul, guys have pretty good judgment. But handling beanballs, handling arguments, handling situations, and how you do that, the last thing you want to do is throw more fuel on the fire and cause even more turmoil on the field. You're the only guy being paid out there to try to be calm when people aren't necessarily very calm. It's a lot easier said than done sometimes, but that a lot of times will separate umpires and separate a AAA guy. That one guy gets to the big leagues and one guy doesn't. They're both pretty good ball strike, safe out umpires, but this guy handles situations much better.
So you get to the majors 1985, right?
86. 85 was my first game in the big leagues, but I got my contract in 86.
86. So what's other than maybe monetary wise, what's the biggest difference between Major League Baseball and minor league baseball as far from a traveling standpoint, from just your perspective?
Well, obviously the money is a huge difference. Not only salary, but your per diem and what your daily expenses. Your travel's all first class airfare. Your equipment. We have a huge equipment bag that has our plate equipment, our base shoes, our plate shoes, hats, warm weather gear, cold weather gear, black shirts, blue shirts, base pants, plate pants. It's a lot of stuff in this trunk. It's heavy, it's bulky, and it's a pain in the rear. In AAA, you're carrying that thing around. When you're moving in the big leagues, you pack it at home before the season, and the next time basically you have to handle it is at home when it's delivered when the season's over. That's all air freighted after every game, and it may sound like a small thing, but trust me, when you've been for 2 or 3, 4 years dragging this big crate, basically a trunk in AAA in the middle of summer when it's hot and miserable and blah blah blah. That is one of the biggest perks we have. Is we don't have to touch that thing and it goes back and forth. But the money, the travel, the accommodations. Time off. We get 4 weeks off during the season in the big leagues. In the minor leagues, you don't get. I mean, you have a day off here and there. You might have the All-Star break off, maybe 2 days, but you rarely get home unless you happen to be in a league that is near home and where you can do that in the big leagues. So you have more time off. Of course, we're paid year round in the big leagues, even in the off season. The minor leagues, you're only paid during the season. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the perks. It's a big jump. Not just monetarily, which is big, but it just in working conditions and frankly quality of life. Really
good. Well, it's once you get there, I mean, you obviously are part of obviously a very small fraternity, and you guys see some of the biggest moments, both, from an important standpoint, oddity standpoint. I mean, what are some of the things that stand out to you through your career that maybe people would be interested in hearing that maybe aren't as well known?
Well, it's it's funny how you'll watch a game and you'll hear announcers, and I'm not faulting them, but you call a strike and a hitter will look back and they'll be saying something. They'll say, "Well, he didn't like that," or he's telling plate umpire Dale Scott he didn't think that was a good pitch, or whatever. And a lot of times, I mean, not a lot of times, but there are certainly times when a guy would boom, strike, and he'll go, "Man, I should have knocked that 500 feet." And he's just saying, why didn't I swing at that or something? Or it's not necessarily that they disagree. They'll just go, that hit the corner. Yep. Okay. I mean, it's, sometimes things are happening on the field that aren't necessarily what you're hearing or what you think is happening as you're watching the game or observing the game. The banter between catchers and umpires at times. Some catchers are very talkative, some aren't. I was never a real talkative umpire. Some guys are more talkative, but you have a little bit of a special bond with a catcher because, quite frankly, they're saving your life every time the ball is pitched. You're definitely wanting him to catch it or at least block it and keep it off you. But, it's interesting, a catcher you'll ball a pitch and go, "Oh, damn, man, they'll throw the ball back. We need to get that pitch. That's a strike." I said, it's outside or whatever. It's low. And then a little bit later, that same pitch, "Man, we Dale, we got to have that." And I said, "Okay, so when you're at bat and I call that a strike, you have no problem with it."
Well,
a lot of times they'll say, "Well, I didn't say that."
I got to back up for a second to them saving your lives. As a Yankee fan, is there any truth to the rumor that your retirement was tied to Gary Sanchez coming to the Yankees?
No, but I know where you're going with this. There was some guys that were really good receivers and they blocked everything. And there was other guys that, quite frankly, and frankly, well thought of catchers. I mean, they called a good game. Maybe their offense was pretty good, but they weren't the greatest receivers in the world. And so there's that. You definitely you're depending. That's why they call him a catcher. Catch it, and that's what you're hoping. Because we've all had a time where maybe he's crossed up or maybe he just misjudged it, and you're focusing on the pitch because you're assuming that the ball's going to be caught. And there's a couple of times I was hit right square in the mask by a pitch with no glove on it whatsoever because he was either crossed up or for some reason he just didn't get there. And that's a little unnerving.
You felt the safest behind.
Yeah, there was guys that, going old school when Tony Pena used to catch, he was a guy that seemed to block everything. And then there was a lot of other guys too that were good at that. But let's put it this way: there's a lot more guys that you were comfortable behind. There's only a few here and there that you were like,
I mentioned one. Is there one you can think of that you said, "Oh my gosh, he's catching again today"?
Geez, offhand right now, no. But if I think of one, I will let you do it for sure.
All right. Well, it'll be in the book if you think of it, I'm sure.
Well, of course, yeah. That's why I want you to buy the book. I'll let you know in the book.
What about how about when you're a young umpire? Are you given the same respect by players? Or I'm sure you have to earn respect in your performance. But are you treated any differently by players or managers? And I'm sure some are easier than others on young.
Yeah, well, let's you when you come to the big leagues, you have zero credibility, frankly, and so they're going to test you. They're going to see, first of all, they pretty much don't believe you. Anything close, they're not necessarily going to believe just because they don't know you. They don't know, you're young, you're new. They don't know your work ethic or any of that stuff. And you just accept that as an official. You understand that's part of the deal. My first ejection of a manager was Sparky Anderson. My first year in '86 it was in Toronto, and over pitches, he was yelling from the dugout, and then he came beelined it out to the mound. So I knew exactly, he wasn't talking to the pitcher. And he was, I said, well, let's get this over with. And I came out and then he said, where the hell is, that pitch? And I said, I said, we're not going to talk about pitches. And he said, the heck we aren't. And blah, blah. And so I eject him. And that's the entire reason why he was out there. And then he went off on me and sprayed me with tobacco juice and really had quite a scene. And so, but Sparky was like a lot of managers was he would get in the grill of new umpires to see what they're made of, frankly, and see if he could intimidate you and what your reaction would be and all that kind of stuff. And I got to say, I had arguments with Sparky. I don't believe I ejected him again after that. I might have once, but once he saw you work a little bit, once you kind of went through and passed the Sparky test, and it wasn't just Sparky, but in this instance, he pretty much let you work. I mean, we still had our issues at times, but now if I had not handled that well, or if he had felt I had not handled it well, or he had affected me in some way, intimidated me, it certainly would not have been that way. But that's just normal. I remember in my first couple of years, I would have a play at first or a play, whatever, a steal play or something. And, I'm pretty confident on it, but I would get some stuff. And then, the next day or the very same day, a veteran guy on the crew would have the exact same play and they don't even budge. It's like it didn't even happen. And I'm like, wait a minute, but it's just the way that works. And that's for about 2 or 3 years, give or take, kind of just to get through the league and to a point where at least they know who you are. They may not like your work, but they know who you are, and they will adjust accordingly. Some will never adjust; they just don't believe you at all. But usually they'll let you work.
You certainly started at the top. I mean, I'm trying to think of a lesser known name in 1985, Tom Troublehorn or somebody. I'm not sure if he was managing that, but you started with Sparky. That's
I started with Sparky in 1988. My third year, I was the last umpire to ever eject Billy Martin.
Yeah, I was going to go there next. So when I read that fact about you, I had to go look up the video, and it is a piece of work. Billy trying to kick dirt on you in a wet field,
out of damp field. That's exactly right. And that was another instance where it wasn't even my call. And I was at first, Rick Reed at second, and it was Rick's call, and he was in an argument with Rick, but then all of a sudden, he just whipped around. I said, you saw him catch it. And I said, well, no, Sparky trapped it. And he said, well, you're full of blah, 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 blah. Well, that's ejection, so I ejected him. And he went off and he was trying to, it was a damp infield. It was the third inning of a 5:00 start on Memorial Day in '88 in Oakland. And he's trying to kick dirt, and it's still damp. So he can't get it after a couple of kicks. And in fact, one of his kicks, he just nicked my knee with his foot. So I'm pointing down. You kicked me, Billy. You just kicked me, And of course, he's screaming. And so when he figured out he couldn't get any, he just picked up a whole big old double handful of dirt and just chest pass right into my chest. And he was suspended 3 days after that. He came back to work and managed for about 2 weeks or so, but was not ejected in that span. And then he was fired and never managed again. So somebody said I was an actual answer of a Trivial Pursuit Sports Edition, the last umpire to eject Billy Martin. I don't know if that's true, but I don't know if I was in the game, but I do know it's true that I was.
Well, it's a great story. In fact, I was going to ask you because I didn't realize how quickly Billy was out of the had gotten fired that time. Again, as a Yankee fan, it's hard to keep track of all those
exactly
those instances. And I wondered if you'd come across, you'd cross paths again after that, and how he treated you after that. But I guess
well, actually, if I'm not mistaken, I had his last series. Here's what happened after that day in Oakland. Unbeknownst to me, and of course this is before email and all of that, the league got a letter saying if Dale Scott ever comes to New York, he's leaving in a body bag. And they didn't tell me about this, but the league got this, right? And so our crew was going to New York. I don't know. And in those days, working just the American League, you went to cities a lot more often because you had less cities to go to and that kind of stuff than working all both leagues. But anyway, we were going to go to New York, and the league called me up and they said, "Hey, listen, we're going to make a switch. You'll join so and so's crew in Detroit or wherever." And crew switches happen for various reasons. I didn't think anything of it, and they didn't tell me why. I found out later on in the season. But I believe the last series that Billy worked before he was fired, our crew was there. So I did, and I believe it was in Detroit. And he said, I remember having that series, and it just so happened I had in the rotation. I was the 3-game series. I was working third, second, first, so I didn't have the plate. But I was thinking as I'm going to Detroit, I'm thinking, well, it's the first time I'm going to see Billy since that incident. And I wonder how he's going to be. And he was, he was fine. He didn't. He certainly didn't go after me on anything, but the game dictates that a little bit too. But anyway, after that, he was fired. But I found out later that season when I went into New York, they told me, they said, well, we got this death threat. We just thought we'd maybe leave it, not let you know for a while. I thought, well, thank you very much. Crazy stuff.
This is why when people ask me where I'm from and I say New York, I make sure I say upstate New York. Right. It's funny, I had Mark Littell on the show last week, and he's from Gideon, Missouri.
Yeah, Missouri.
And I said, where I grew up in Perth, New York, is more like Gideon, Missouri than New York City. Believe me. So.
Yeah. I worked in the association. I worked in Buffalo. That's pretty upstate. But so I only know New York City and Buffalo. It's the only two I know in New York.
There's a lot of different places in between.
Yeah.
So once you're in the league a few years, Dale, and my guess is Dale Scott, former Major League umpire, for those who may be joining us late. When you're in the league a while, and I'm sure it's a few years before you're getting, playoff games.
Right.
When you get there, is it a different feeling for you? Are you nervous? Is it just another game?
Well, it's certainly not another game. Yeah, there's a complete intensity switch level that goes up when you walk on the field for a postseason game. You just feel it. You feel it, the electricity in the crowd. You sense it with the two dugouts and the two teams, and of course you know it yourself, especially your first playoff series. Mine was in 1995, so it was my 10th year, 10th season, and it was my first 2 games. I had first base and then behind the plate for the divisional series of the Mariners at the Yankees, and my plate game, game 2, my first postseason plate game of my career, went 15 innings, 5 hours and 13 minutes. Jim Leyritz home run in the bottom of the 15th, a walk-off, which it had started to rain. And quite frankly, if that had not happened, because it began to pour right after the home run. and I swear it rained for a day and a half. I mean, it was the weather had turned miserable, and if he hadn't hit that home run and walked us off right then, let's put it this way: if we had to take him off the field that night, I'm not sure when we would have gotten back on. It certainly probably wouldn't have been that night, but. That was my first plate game in postseason, so that was a fun way to start her off. I haven't have postseason. Let's play almost the equivalent of 2 games. So
that was an exciting series all the way through to be your first playoff series.
Back then they switched crews after the first 2 games. So after the second game, there was a travel day for both series, and we went to Boston, and Cleveland and Boston were playing in the other divisional. And Cleveland won. It was game 3. Cleveland won, and they swept. So we had one more game where the crew that was in Cleveland for the Boston series, they left Cleveland with a 2-0 lead by one team, but they joined a series with a 2-0 lead, and they thought, oh, good. Well, we both have shots at sweeps, because you have to remember umpires don't get paid by the game. By the hour. But anyway, they ended up having an unbelievable 3 games in the Kingdom. Basically, saved the Mariners. Got them. It was right after that they passed for the new stadium, the bond measure or whatever, and that playoff series just ignited that city when they came back and beat the Yankees. So, but I wasn't there for the 3 games in the Kingdom.
I was having trouble getting excited for him at the time, but as
I can imagine.
And I was looking for a way to turn this into blaming you for them blowing that series, and now I can't even do that.
Can't even do that. Well, an interesting little fact at my play game. Which 15 innings. There was a lot of pitches that neither team liked, but at one point I had called out. It was a Yankee that wasn't a Yankee very long. I can't remember who it was, but I caught him out of strikes. He got in my face. Anyway, Steinbrenner during the game called a press conference up in the press box and basically said I was cheating for the Mariners because I'm from Portland. and he got fined $50,000 by President Gene Budig. For insinuating that I was cheating for the Mariners, and George didn't realize Al Clark was on that crew, and he's from New Jersey, right out of New York, and so maybe he was cheating for the Yankees. I don't know.
It sounds so un-George-like, though.
Doesn't it though?
It doesn't play. As you get it again, as your career goes on, you managed Good grief! Why do I want you to keep making you a player and a manager? You umpired in some 3 World Series, right? And I think you had a Yankee World Series, 2 of them series.
Yeah.
98, obviously, they had a great team in 98, so that series didn't last long. But in 2001, obviously, with everything that happened in September 11th that year, and that series was filled with electricity, and you were part of if I'm not mistaken, part of a very electric moment when George W. Bush was in New York City to throw out the first pitch for that game. What was that? What was the atmosphere like there?
Yeah, that was game 3, which was my plate game. We opened in Arizona. I was at second and first for the first 2 games, and then had the plate game 3. Like you said, it was 7 or 8 weeks after 9/11. Obviously, the country was still in shock and sorting out what was happening in our world, but more specifically in New York, obviously. And so, I tell people I think that may be the only time, because as Yankee fan, you're either a Yankee fan or you're not. There's very few in between.
No, very polarizing team for sure.
Right, and I think that year in the World Series, I think non-Yankee fans were actually Yankee fans for the first time in their life, only because of 9/11 and what was happening in our world. But I had the plate, and we were told that the president was going to throw out the first pitch. I'd met George Bush numerous times when he was the owner of the Rangers. Yeah. And then when he was governor, he would sit right when he was at games. He would sit, and as owner, he would sit right by the Rangers dugout, right by where the ball boys would have the bag of baseballs. And sometimes between innings, the ball boys are busy getting bats or doing whatever, and I just walk over to pick up a couple balls to put in my ball bag, and he'd be sitting right there. He'd say, "Hey, looks like you're sweating." He'd say, "Well, yeah, it's Texas, so July, but so So now he's president and he's coming to the game. And so, it was, first of all, that series of the three that I did, all three had characteristics, but that one was the most patriotic, the most electric. It was just, the home team won every game. The Yankees, 2 out of the 3 that they won at home were ninth inning or extra inning, walk-offs or ties. It was just an incredible series. And then Arizona winning in the 7th off of Mariano with the lead in the 9th inning. That doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. So it was really quite a series, but we knew the president was coming. We got there early. Jimmy Joyce, who lives here in the Portland area, we went to the game early, real early. You go early in the World Series. We went really early because security was going to be so tight. Let me set up what it looked like at Yankee Stadium walking in. A usual game at Old Yankee Stadium. Excuse me. We walk in to the press gate. There's the guy knows us, lets us in. There's a security guard there. We go down some stairs. There's a security person at the bottom of the stairs. We walk this long hallway, take a left, walk another long hallway. There's a security guy there. We take a right. We go right in front of the Yankee clubhouse where there's several security. We go about another, 50 yards or something. And then it's our locker room and there's security there. So there's maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 security on our way to our room. That night and that entire series, well, I shouldn't say the entire series, but that night, with the president coming, let us in, metal detectors, the whole thing, security there, walk down, security there. And at that first long hallway, there was a security person every 15 feet. It's a long hallway with no doors or anything. There's nothing, but every 15 feet, take a left, an even longer hallway every 15 feet, go by the Yankee clubhouse. A ton of people got to our room. There was about 3 security people in our room. There were bomb sniffing dogs before every game, both in Arizona and New York, that they would secure all the other places too, but all of the locker rooms and stuff. And twice before the game. It was just insane. But when Jimmy and I walked into the locker room there in New York, here's a gentleman sitting across the way, and we don't know who he is. He introduced himself. Hi, John Smith, whatever. He said, United States Secret Service. He said, I'll be walking out onto the field with you guys in umpire uniform. And so what they had done is they had a Secret Service guy in an umpire uniform, and they had 2 Secret Service guys in New York Yankee groundskeeper uniforms that were on the field at the time when the president went out to throw the first pitch. So this guy, he had the earpiece and stuff. And so as we're sitting, and then, I don't know, it was an 8:20 start or something. I think Jimmy and I got there at 4 or 4:30 or 4 o'clock, maybe, 4 hours. We watched as this guy was getting ready to go out. He had a bulletproof vest. He had a sidearm. He had a automatic weapon of some type. On a strap. He had handcuffs and he had those plastic ties, or whatever. He had the earpiece. He also had some kind of a spray. I don't know, mace. I don't know, something. But I said to him at one point, I said, if you don't need that mace, I could use that. That might be helpful at some point during the game. I'm just asking. But and what he did is he borrowed he had gray pants. He put a windbreaker, one of our umpire windbreakers over. Had a hat. We gave him a hat. And when we watch on the field, there's 6 umpires. Mark Hirschbeck stayed in the tunnel, so the Secret Service guy would be the 6th. So there wouldn't be 7 guys out there. Frankly, probably nobody would notice anyway. But they did that. So he, with that earpiece, he was saying we'd be in the locker room. All of a sudden, you go, the president is on his way to New York. He's left Andrews or whatever. Oh, okay, great. The president arrived. The president. He was giving us updates, and at one point he goes, and we weren't sure if he's going to stop by our locker room or not. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes it doesn't. It just depends. But a lot of times when a president or a dignitary is in the stadium and going to do that. They secure them a lot of times in the umpire locker room for the simple fact that it's a smaller room, less people. It's got direct access to the field, and the umpire room is pretty secure because people hate umpires. So that's why. But no, so we thought he might come by, and sure as heck, the guy he goes, the umpire will be here at 7:58. We said, the president will be here at 7:50. Oh, okay. And he walks in. Well, the locker room in Yankee Stadium was a rectangle. You walk in. There was a doorway opposite where you walk in. That's to the showers and latrine and everything. I was in the bathroom, just taking care of business there, and I heard kind of a commotion in the room, so I knew he must have arrived. And one of his detail, even though the guy was already there, but his details with him, which is much larger, he immediately goes to that open area and looks just to see who's in the shower area and stuff. He saw me standing there. He said, "You've got a visitor." I said, "I'll be right back." And I'm washing my hands, seriously. and so I walk out, and I'm the last guy to because he's come around and said hello to everybody. I always wear an Oregon Duck hat before each game. I carry one in my trunk. So I had my Duck hat on. So I came out and I said, "Mr. President, Dale Scott." He goes, "Dale, yeah." He goes, "I remember you." He goes, "You're the guy that's always sweating in Texas." I said, "Yes, sir. That's me." And he looked at my hat. And he goes, I didn't know you're an Oregon fan. Are you from Oregon?" I go, "Yes, sir." I said, I live in Portland now. And he goes, all I know about Portland is that every time my dad or I went there, it was they would always riot. I go, "Well, yes, that's Portland. Yeah, welcome to Portland." So, but he stayed. He autographed 24 baseballs. He was just very calm and personable, talking with us. We got got everything else dressed. We went out when we were supposed to, and then of course he came out a little bit later and threw the first pitch. It was really a magical, unbelievable night and an unbelievable series.
That moment is well, I'm sure it's burned into a lot of people's memories. I mean, I can't think of more pressure on any. I mean, presidents have pressure, obviously, more than just throwing out the first pitch of the World Series. But standing out there and he goes to the mound, the top of the mound.
Well, you've heard that story, right?
Oh yeah,
with Jeter, and Jeter said to him, "Are you going to throw from the mound?" He goes, "Well, I was going to throw in front." He goes, "They'll kill you. These fans will kill you." He said, "You got to throw from the mound."
I do remember that.
And yeah, don't screw it up.
And he threw a strike.
Threw a strike. Yeah.
One of the best moments in baseball history to me. I mean, it was just a great moment, and to be part of that had to be awesome for you. So
yeah, it really was.
I mean, you've been present for a lot of big moments. I mean, you've been behind the plate for no hitters. You've been on the bases for no hitters. You've been I don't know if you did the plate for Andy Hawkins. A no hitter that wasn't a no hitter, but
exactly. Yeah, 1990, I believe, in Comiskey.
Yeah, that was you walked like 9 guys that day, I think, to lose that game. But
well, what lost it though was Leyritz in left field. An error on a fly ball. I mean, they shouldn't have scored anything in that eighth inning, the bottom of the eighth. But yeah, that was the no hitter that the pitcher lost, which is rare that a no hitter that a pitcher wins. Yet, 3 or 4 months later, the rules committee said that's not a no hitter because you have to pitch 9 or more innings. Oh well.
Well, we're changing a lot of rules now, so we might as well. What do you think? What do you? I'll get into this quickly. I guess I don't want to spend too much time on it, but obviously, I mean, as the game progresses and gets more sophisticated with technology, and the things that replay was in play when you were still umpiring. I'm sure.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I'm not a big fan. I'm okay with human error. I really am.
Yeah.
There's been big moments in baseball history that if you eliminated the human error, we wouldn't even remember them today, right?
That's very true. Yeah.
And obviously, the talk of going to robotic balls and strike calling, and I mean, what do you think? I can imagine what you think of all of that, but I guess I'll ask the question anyway.
Well, replay in general, we had a lot of us had a lot of trepidation about it. We weren't sure how that was all gonna work, quite frankly. And to be honest with you, I don't have a problem with replay, and the reason is that we're never going to beat technology. People are watching games on 60-inch, 70-inch screens and super slow-mo, high definition, 4D, blah, blah, blah. Technology changes by the hour, it seems. But and we have one chance, one time in real time to come up with something. So it eliminates mistakes. And I for the most part, I'm okay with that. A lot of people say it takes too long. Well, we used to have arguments and those took a while too. And usually nothing came of them, except it might've been a little entertaining.
They were more fun.
Right. Exactly. And I understand your sentiment. I really do. I always say, if you want, as far as, let me just finish. As far as the robotic zone, now to me, we're getting a little bit too technical. Do we want a video game, or do we want a game played by humans, officiated by humans, and the frailties that can happen with a human? I mean, if the bases are loaded and one out, and there's a perfect ground ball, double play ball to the shortstop, and it goes right between his legs, do you say, well, after further review, he usually makes that, so we're going to give him 2 outs, and ending over? Of course you don't. He misplayed the ball. He made a mistake, and runs scored, and he didn't get the outs, whatever. But if a pitch comes in that's a bit outside or a bit low, and an umpire calls strike 3, the world is coming to an end. So sometimes if you want the game officiated perfectly, then it should be played perfectly. And guess what? It will never be played perfectly. It just won't, because humans are playing it. So that's my spiel on replay. As far as the strike zone, I have real issues with that, and I think. I'm not sure what people really want. Do you really want a video game? Because the personalities in baseball, in most sports, include not that we're the show by any means, but include the officials. And I sometimes I think. They want you to be perfect and then improve. So I'm not sure you can do that.
I guess I could have dealt with, and again, I'm very old school when it comes to these things, and I'm sure how it breaks down where you stand might fall where you fall in demographics, right. As well. And I guess I could have lived with replay if it was just about making sure egregious errors didn't happen.
Right.
And I'm still okay with those, to be honest with you. Don Dankinger's call and
right.
Your friend Jim Joyce's call.
Right.
Game. I mean, I get it. Bad mistakes. They know they were bad mistakes. Yeah. And they had, had impact on the outcome of those games. So I get that. But now it's become, okay, well, a guy's foot slid off the bag for a split second, and we're going to challenge that, and he's out.
Right, and those are cheap outs, and that's a collateral damage, so to speak, of replay, because and you see the fielders now, every time they just keep that glove right on them the whole time, because they might get a cheap out, and that's frustrating, because it's a cheap out, but you can't say, well, that's normally not called out, and he was only this far, and so if he's off the base and being tagged with a live ball, he's out. I mean, that's just the way it is. I agree with you. That's why they had put in it challenges. That's why they have just so you can't just every close call have you go to replay. You have to. A manager's going to have to know if he wants to use his challenge on this or that or this or that. But I agree with you that. That's just a cheap out, and it's not what replay was intended for. No. It's just unfortunate that if you're gonna have replay, you have to have replay all the way in, which means if there's a rule infraction or something in the rules, you got to call it. And I agree with you though.
It just takes away from the game for me. It seems to happen almost every night in every game. There's something that I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Now, and one thing, just as a sidebar, when we first started replay, was just boundary calls in the outfield. That was really needed, because we're looking at plays that are 200, 250 feet away in real time. It was a fan touching it. Did he touch it? Did he not touch it? Was a home run? Was it not home run? Fair foul. Those things we would get together before replay. We would get together and. What do you got? I think he fan touched. What do you got? I think it's a double. What do you got? And we just have to come up with something where both teams. the people in the stands and the entire audience watching all know what happened, and we don't, and we're the ones that have to call it. So that makes total sense to me.
I get it. Yeah. Well, we're going to go a little over here. We can go a little longer here. I know I told you probably 50 minutes, but there's a couple of...
Well, you pay by the hour, right? So
Absolutely. When you submit your bill,
it'll be in the mail. I hear it's really slow now.
Some Buffalo coins. You can spend those out there, can't you?
Absolutely. I mean, we're in Oregon. We'll do anything. That's
Let's touch on obviously another important aspect in Dale Scott's life. You were the first major league umpire to come out as openly gay. So obviously, you spent a lot of years in the major leagues and in the minor leagues, obviously, where you hadn't come out.
Right.
And you must have made a conscious decision not to do that. I mean,
oh yeah.
I'm sure some of your colleagues, if not all your colleagues, knew it. I don't know about the players or managers. I mean, it must have been a difficult road for you.
It had its challenges. I figured out who I was before I went on Postseason. I was about 19 when I realized that I was gay, and it was one of those situations, kind of like an official. You're either out or safe, or ball or strike. You don't have a lot of nuance. You don't have time to, the tag, and I don't know, and he slid, and you have to make a decision. I kind of have that type of official's mindset, and when I finally kind of figured out in my mind that, oh, you're gay, what are you going to do about it? And I told myself I was not going to look in the mirror every single day of the rest of my life and lie to myself and lie to other people, like meaning, start a family and stuff when that's not who I was. And a lot of people did that, and because of religious issues or just the society and whatever. So I told myself I'm not going to do that. This is who you are, and frankly, I was okay with it. But I also knew it's what I call that I had to play the game, and by playing the game, I mean that meant even though I know who I am, I can't necessarily go out and just tell everybody that I'm gay. I mean, not at that point in time. This was in 1979. Went to school at 81, all through the minor leagues, all through my career, the majority of my career in the major leagues. I not only was in the closet baseball wise and at work, but I actively tried to deceive people that I was heterosexual. I mean, because I didn't want people to start thinking, oh, I don't know about this guy or whatever. Because, when I was first starting, I thought it was going to affect my career. I'd never make it to the big leagues. I get fired. Nobody would want to work with me. You got to remember too, this is the 80s, HIV, AIDS. Nobody knew what it was for a while. Then how do you spread it? And I mean, there may be umpire partners that had no issue with me being gay, but they had a big issue of sharing a bar of soap in a shower or something with me because they don't know at that time. It was people just didn't know, they were scared, and so it wasn't until and you have to also understand I didn't work in a city that I lived. I got to the big leagues. I live in Portland. The nearest city I worked is Seattle, 180 miles away. So I didn't have, I wasn't like a job where we have a summer job employee picnic with your spouse and your kids or something, or you have a Christmas party with all your, and where I had to have those type of social functions where I had to have a girlfriend or something, or, some kind of a deception. So that made it easier that I didn't work in a city that I lived in, because I was out at home. I mean, all my friends and I was out to my family and stuff. So it wasn't like I was a completely closeted man. It was just in my baseball capacity. And so eventually through the kind of in the late 90s, a couple guys just not coordinated, but just on different occasions that came up to me and just said, "Hey, Dale," just out of nowhere, it said, "Hey, I realize you got a different lifestyle. I just want you to know that I would walk on the field with you any day. You're a great guy. You're a great umpire, and I just want you to know that I got your back." And at first I was very defensive because I was so used to not wanting that to be a thing. And but eventually I realized that the staff the staff knew, and frankly they didn't care. The guys that might have cared never said anything to me. I'm not saying everybody was all thrilled, but what I'm saying is it helped me come out that way to the people I worked with, to the people on Park Avenue, which is they've moved now, but the office on Park Avenue when I was working. Yeah. And then eventually Mike, who's my husband, and at the time we've been together since after my first year in the big leagues, in October of '86. So when we contractually in our working agreement, we were able to have registered domestic partners. He would be on my insurance and stuff. He got a spouse card like all the spouses. So the league knew also.
Right.
And so they all knew. So when I came out in December of 2014, it wasn't news to my peers, the umpires I worked with. It wasn't news to the front office and the people that signed my checks and supervised me, but it was news to teams and to the media and to fans. And I was the first active male official in the big five sports, the top five sports to come out as gay. And it was in December. So we didn't work our first spring training until March. So I wasn't sure when I walked on the field that March in Arizona, what reception, if any, I would have from any player or coach or manager. Fans, I don't know if fans would give me cheap shots or whatever. And
right.
quite frankly, I think coming out in December, a lot of people just attention span. Who cares? I mean, it was almost like nobody even knew. But I have to share this one experience, which really meant a lot to me. My very first game, and it was a strange feeling walking out because I was walking out for the first time as an openly gay man, and I knew that if somebody sitting in the stands just happened to Google me. Oh, number 5, who's that umpire? Oh, Dale. Oh, he's gay. It's right there, right? So it was Cincinnati and Cleveland. Marlon Byrd was playing for the Reds. He's an outfielder with the Phillies. He'd been with a few other teams.
Marlon, yeah.
And so I'd known him for several years. And he's running in from left field about the third inning, and I had switched from first base a couple innings. I went over to third, and he comes running. He goes, Dale! And he comes running up, and usually, the first time you see guys in spring training, a lot of, hey, how was your winter? How's it? It's, I'm not going to yell at you right now. I'm just going to say hello. And so Marlon comes up and goes, Dale, and he comes up and he gives me a huge bear hug, which is, rather unusual for a player to do that. And he whispers to me, he goes, Dale, I'm so proud of you. You're free, man. You are free. And it really, it blew me away, but it also, I said, thanks, Marlon. I really appreciate that. And it really just made me feel good. Somebody would say that, but to let you know how the whole year went, that entire season, I only had 3 players, 1 coach, and 1 trainer even say anything about me coming out. All of it positive, all of them congratulating me. Yeah. Everything else was either they didn't know or had forgot or could care less, and I had said when I came out in December, when I did some interviews, I said, I think when baseball starts, so the question was, well, how do you think they'll react? So I think when we start playing games, I think they'll be much more concerned about me getting pitches and plays right than what I do when the game's over. So, and that's really what it amounted to. So, and I didn't hear any cheap shots from the stands. I heard some funny shots. One guy said, because in the article that I came out of, I mentioned that I was an Oregon Duck fan, right? And he said, I am shocked and appalled that Dale Scott came out as a Duck fan. and then there was a pause and he goes, but it makes a lot of sense with all the uniform changes. And I just, it just cracked me up. I thought that was hilarious. That's some funny stuff. But I was very grateful that I was, accepted by the people I worked with, the people I work with on the field and off the field. And I'm glad I did it because it started a conversation, and I got a lot of emails and stuff from people that really touched me, that, the things all, again, very, very positive remarks. So it's a different time.
Yeah, it had to be very freeing to do. Did you ever wish that you'd done it sooner?
Yes and no. Yes, a little bit, but we had just as a nation, in fact, well, Mike and I were legally married the year before in November of 2013 in California. We have a place in Palm Springs. We got married in our backyard where it was legal in California. It still wasn't legal in Oregon at that point. It was, then legal in Oregon the next year, I think, or whatever. And then, of course, then the Supreme Court, and it was legal everywhere. But one of my main thought processes about coming out when I did was Mike and I had now been legally married for a year. We'd been together for 28 or whatever it was. But I thought, it's time. I mean, we as a community had fought so hard to get to be able to legally marry. Mike and I we've been together. We've had this life. I thought, it seems almost hypocritical for me to stay in the closet as a married gay man and with all the progress that we were making as a community and whatever. So that was kind of my thought process when I did it. And it just was the right time. And, do I wish I'd done it earlier? Maybe a little bit, but I think it worked out well.
Well, I congratulate you on your courage to do that. And let me ask you, do you think, I would like to think yes. But do you think a young man today could make it through the gauntlet that you did, openly gay from the beginning?
I do. Yeah, I do. I now, if you would ask me that maybe 5 years ago or so, I'm not sure what my answer would have been. I'm not saying it would be just smooth sailing all the way, but I truly believe that I think the gay marriage or marriage equality thing changed a lot of minds in this country that didn't really have a dog in the hunt, so to speak, or really didn't think one way or the other. But you're always going to have people that are not, are against gay people, either religious reasons or usually that's it. But there may be others. But I think a lot of people that really didn't have an opinion one or the other, or didn't really think about it, or thought, well, whatever. And they saw the sky didn't fall when this state and this state and this state were suddenly, same-sex marriages, and it wasn't, Armageddon and everything was going to, Mike and I have been together. Next month will be 34 years, and I'm not saying this is equivalent, but I know a lot of people have been married 3 or 4 times in 34. Yeah, so it's I think now, I think that, yes, I think that a gay man or woman could go through the ranks and do their job. All I wanted to be, and I said this in interviews too, Major League Baseball has been great to me as far as they've known for a long time, and they've only judged me on my work on the field, as it should be. It didn't matter my personal life at all. Am I doing the job or am I not? And that's what's important. And I think, like with players, there's gay baseball players. They're not out yet, but there are some. And I think, where a few years ago you would have, when that topic would come up, you'd have some players would say, oh, that would make me uncomfortable to, be in the locker room, blah, blah, blah. And it still might with some guys, but really the bottom line is, I think, can the guy hit? Can he pitch? Can he, if he can play, and if he can, he can. It really doesn't, it really doesn't matter how that affects. One of the comments you always heard, well, that's an affront on straight marriage. Well, how does my marriage affect your marriage? Yours doesn't affect my. So I think a lot of people just saw this isn't the end of everything. And I always used to joke, hey, listen, if we want to be as miserable as you straight people, let me, get married.
Well, I just want to go on the record that I'm very happy with my wife, and I don't want to shake my head and laugh too hard at that.
That's right. Just
but
I can
in the sentiment for sure. So let me ask you. So I shortchanged you. It shortchanged you because, again, I don't math very well because I graduated with 52 people at the Perth High School. So I think I shortchanged you on your years of service. I think I said 20 years, and you obviously had like 32, I think, right?
32, yeah, 32 years. And
you retired because of multiple concussions.
Yeah.
Is that the reason you retired, or were you ready to retire anyway?
Well, to be honest with you, okay, I turned 60 last year, August of 2019. And my plan was that was going to be my last year. And in 2017, April of 2017 is when my second play game. It was April 14th in Toronto. I took a nasty shot in the 7th or 8th inning, had a concussion and also whiplash, which was the first time that had happened. This was the 4th concussion in about 4 years. It was the second one in like 8.5 months. And this time they were taking me off the field in a stretcher in a neck brace. And I was going to go, that season 17, 18, and 19. So really 3 more seasons because that season just started. But as I was recovering and going to physical therapy for the whiplash, I talked to 3 different specialists. And I asked them all 3 the same question. I said, what, if any, are the long-term effects of these concussions I've been getting and head blows? And all 3 had the same answer. We don't know. We just don't know. We don't have the data, that we just don't know what, if any, repercussions or issues you may have down the road. However, they all said this too. What we do know is the more head blows and concussions you have, the higher probability you will have issues. I talked to 2 retired umpires. Both had to retire because of concussions. One of them, Eddie Montague, who was a supervisor at the time, he retired after last year, but he was a supervisor, and I know Eddie really well. About 3 or 4 days after that incident in Toronto, when I was home recuperating, he called me and he said, Dale, he goes, and Eddie had to leave the field because of concussions. He said, Dale, I still have memory issues. I have neck issues. I have sleep issues. He said, make a deal with the league and get the hell off the field. He said, I don't want you to be in that same situation. And I was leaning toward that anyway. You asked me, was I ready to retire? I really was ready, but my plan was to go a few more years. But I really was ready. So it made the decision a little bit easier, but the decision, I could have come back. There's no doubt. I mean, once I was cleared, but I just decided, you know what, I've been playing with house money, and I think I'm going to walk away from the table, and all the tests and things that I've had through that and since then have been good. There haven't been even any yellow flags of certain things, but it's like they said, you still may have issues as you get older. Nothing right now shows anything that makes us think you definitely will, or whatever, or things to look out for. But yeah, because we don't know really, you still may have issues. I'm fine. I feel fine, but I think it was the right decision.
Well, again, if you'd stuck around a few more years, you might have been catching Gary Carter, or I'm Gary Carter. I'm having a bad day myself today. It's been a long day here on the East Coast.
Oh, you're better alive, right?
Right, I am. Early in the morning is my best. The best. That's the key. You would have been catching Gary Sanchez at least as a home plate umpire a couple of times,
right?
And you would have been putting yourself at even greater risk. So I'm glad you retired when you did. Again. And you had a great career, and you got a lot to be proud of there, I think. And listen, the one goal, kind of an umpire goal I want to make, the 2017 season, if I had stayed healthy, right around the mid-September, I would have umpired my 4,000th game. At a regular season game, and that's a huge milestone because there's not a lot of umpires that have hit 4,000, and there's not going to be a lot that do in the future because the way our scheduling and stuff's changed. We're in replay for a few weeks during the season. You're just working less games per year, and I would have done that in 32 years. 32 years now, you have to probably go, I don't know, another 2 or 3 years to get to that same number of 4, because scheduling is so much different. So that was something I was looking forward to. But again, it's like somebody said, it's a number. If I ended up 103 games short, 3,897. Guess what? Except for me and maybe my mom, that nobody else knows that anyway. So, I can't even remember Gary Sanchez's name. I won't forget how many.
Well, see, there you go. You're a numbers guy.
Well, look at Dale. I appreciate you coming on with me today. You've been a great guest, and getting your story out there is important. And I'm glad that you agreed to come on the show. You got some great stories to share. And there's still more stuff we could probably touch on, and maybe we'll do this again down the road sometime.
Let's do it again. Just get a hold of me. I appreciate it, Keith. I had a good time talking with you.
I want to thank you for your time, and you enjoy your night, and stay right there for a second. But I want to just say, see if I can end this broadcast. I'll be right back. Well, there you have it. My interview with former retired Major League umpire, not a player or a manager, as I misspoke, Dale Scott. Dale has had a great career, as you heard. I mean, he's got stories. There's more than what we touched on. We went long today. I'm glad for those of you who stayed. I know some of you were in and out of the interview, but yeah, Dale's a great story, and he's got a great story to tell. He's certainly had challenges throughout his career, which could not have been easy for him early on, and he's just a great guy, fun guy, and we wish him well up there in Portland, because they've been not quite as bad as California, but certainly had issues with fires and smoke and a lot of things going on. So we wish Dale and his family and friends well. A couple of quick things. I will be on Sunday at 9 o'clock. We'll discuss, as we did last week, some Major League Baseball. College schedule's still kind of like college football, but we'll touch on that. Maybe the NBA playoffs, now that we've moved on a little bit and we're getting down to serious time, we'll touch on that a little bit. And I'll do my NFL picks. Last week I was 8-7-1. Not terrible for no preseason, no this, no that, kind of coming out blind, but lost a couple games that I was shocked at. But had a couple good winners as well. And I'm looking, because we had a great idea from one of our viewers, Ray Golick, who I think just came in. Ray, if you missed the show, be sure you watch it. It was a great interview with Dale Scott. To have a guest picker. So I hope somebody will shoot me a message on the site, on the page, TGI Sports Talk page, and maybe we'll have a guest picker pick against me each week. We've had some great suggestions so far. We'll have fun with that, I think. And then we'll talk about what we're going to do going forward. I really want to do something so that we can, like I said, grow the followers. We're getting lots of views, thousands of views to the videos. I want to turn those into followers. So if you do watch this, please like and follow the page. Share the video with your friends. I found some great outlets, groups that will let me share the videos for the content that's relevant for them. For instance, today's interview will go on a bunch of Major League Baseball groups that I belong to or have joined recently. So, we're looking for more outlets. We want to get more viewers live. I know 8 o'clock Friday morning is a little tough, but I'm not sure what a better time would be. So we'll talk about that. If you've got suggestions for the show about when we might do it, I might even add a day. Because I want to talk more about some of the issues of the given day. So I've got to talk with my board of directors, which consists of me and my wife, about maybe I might do a night during the week. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But we're going to be here. We're not going anywhere. TGI Sports Talk, the first live webcast, sports webcast from East Greenbush, and the only one, will continue as is, or with some better changes going forward. I'm enjoying these interviews. Next week, by the way, I have Ron Bloomberg, which will be a great guest. I'll do a promo for him this weekend, but Ron will be a great guest. Anybody who's my age and a Yankee fan or even a baseball fan will probably remember Ron's short career, unfortunately. Ron had a lot of talent, but he got cut short by injuries, but he's got a couple of great books out. Designated Hebrew was his first book, because he was the first designated hitter ever in baseball. And then he's got a new book out about the captain and me, his relationship with Thurman Munson, which we'll talk to him about. I believe the book's out or just coming out. So we'll talk to Ron next Friday. And I'll talk to all of you on Sunday morning at 9 o'clock. Please join me live. take some phone calls, and we'll see who wants to be pick against the semi-swami. Billy, I'll be in well, watch it later, Billy. Billy's going to be in Seattle, so be careful out there with all fires and whatnot. All right, guys, have a great Friday. Have a great weekend here, whether you're in the Northeast or whether you're across the country or across the globe. Enjoy your family and your friends this weekend. Enjoy this beautiful fall weather, and we'll see you Sunday morning at 9 a.m. And we'll see you next Friday right here on TGI Sports Talk with Keith Engel. Can't wait to see you then. Bye-bye.